Hi and welcome to today's video. So I've seen a few people doing this, talking about their top basic palettes. Now most people have been very focused on neutrals, and I definitely have a lot of neutrals picked out here, but I think a basic palette isn't just a neutral palette. I think a basic palette is a palette that's easy to use, that's pretty cohesive, it's easy to get a good look that works together and makes sense. So I think a lot of monochromatic palettes, even if they're colourful, are basic. I know Angelica Nyqvist would probably say a rainbow palette is a basic palette because, you know, you just take a rainbow and make an eyeshadow in each of those shades, maybe a shimmer and a matte, or maybe you don't even get into that. It's basic. A lot of brands do it. That would be a bit outside of my comfort zone. But I think a palette with some colour, if it's easy to use and clear on how it's meant to be used, then that's pretty basic. So I've picked 10 palettes that mostly are neutrals, but we'll get into some of that basic colour as well. So the first one is what I'm wearing today. I've a couple of other shades as well because of Project Pan reasons, but predominantly this palette. And I could have done this whole look with this palette other than the inner corner, which is actually kind of subtle. No, maybe you can see it. Because that is the only thing this palette is missing. The Natasha Denona bronze palette, so beautiful, perfect for the autumn. And we are missing an inner corner highlighting shade from this. It's very mid-toned, a lot of browns, very warm. You can go a bit more orangey, which I've done today with this. You can get a bit interesting with Bliss, which has a green flip. You can do one cool tone look really, which is these two. And you can layer the other colours on top of what's called Deep Dive to get something a bit less basic, more interesting. But if you don't want to do that, for me, Beach in the crease and any shimmer or combination of shimmers is a basic, wearable, easy look. Looks great every time. And then if I want to go more orangey, Sundown, if I want to deepen it up and get a bit redder, Magma, and they all work so well together. So I think that's a basic palette. It's easy to use and create beautiful looks with. That won't be the last we're hearing from Natasha Denona today. Next, totally different direction, a quad. This is from Catrice, price-wise and size-wise, very different direction, from their Kaviar Gauche collection, which was last year. This is the Heaven Sent quad, really, really basic rosy neutrals. Obviously wouldn't work for every skin tone. Shame that they didn't make more of these, but they do always give their things like proper names. So, you know, it has a code and a name. Could they do this format again? They could, and I hope they do, and they do more colours. But for me and my skin tone, this is such a basic, everyday, easy palette. And when I was packing, we've moved temporarily. I won't have access to all my makeup for a while, and deciding which palettes to bring, I definitely wanted a go-to easy mini palette that just would do the basics, and this is the one I picked. I think I don't have the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk quad, but I have two dupes for it, and I think either of them would totally work as well as a go-to basic palette, but I chose this one. Next, we've got an Essence, Catrice's sister brand, palette, another limited edition. This is the Coffee to Glow palette. Though, actually, I think maybe not super limited. I think this is still available many places. So we've got these 6 shades, and then this guy, so 7, and then this weird one. I've no interest in that. This shimmer is quite special. It's a bit like spongy, but it's just this beautiful rose gold. Definitely a basic, you know, latte makeup, and the packaging is just so sleek and nice. This doesn't have a mirror, but that does mean it's lighter, so like amazing for travel, or if you just have a makeup bag, your whole collection, you don't have a collection in a bunch of drawers and whatever, and you have a makeup bag, this is such a good palette because it's just those basic warm neutrals, and it's no fuss, no muss, not causing any problems with size or anything other than that one useless shade. And I think the packaging is so pretty, so cute. Probably the definition of basic is being like, I love coffee, blah blah blah. I love coffee. So next is another mini palette. This is the Tartlette Jewel palette. I actually haven't used this one that much, but it's kind of going very much the opposite direction of the Coffee to Glow, because it is a bit more cool toned or neutral. I think it's gorgeous, and I definitely would be up for, you know, if I want basic availability, to have these two. Like, I've got my warms and my cools covered, all neutral, easy, basic, but a bit special. Like, all the shimmers in actually those two palettes are beautiful, really, really nice. So basic but beautiful. Next, I have another palette from Catrice. So this is one of their permanent lines. They've got a whole bunch of these palettes, like this format, in loads of different colours. This is the Next Gen Nudes Pro Slim Eyeshadow Palette. Next Gen Nudes in 010 Courage is Beauty. So many names. As you can see, it's this like rosy, neutral colour story, kind of like, I don't know, Huda New Nudes or something. Really pretty. You've got some quite cool tones. You've got not warm, but like less cool pinks, and this is a bit warmer. Very neutral and perfect for me. Basics for me, because pinks suit me so well, and my undertone, and look very neutral on me. Next up, another warm neutral palette. This is the Minxette Étendu from Viseart. So I actually haven't used this palette yet, so I'm including it purely based on colour story. That's not true. Based on colour story and my knowledge of Viseart. One thing I want from a basic palette is to not cause me problems. Viseart doesn't cause me problems because Viseart's formula has almost no fallout. I would say like no fallout unless you're really going ham with the kind of chaotic blending, which is what I do, but it's like if you go way over the top, you might get one speck of a shimmer shade that you've buffed like crazy on your cheek with Viseart. It's such an easy to use formula, extremely blendable, really beautiful, really soft. It feels so good going on. And obviously this is just a warm neutral colour story. It's funny, it kind of has that like purpley cool tone similar to the Natasha Denona bronze. But yeah, a basic palette that I'm certainly going to crack open very soon in this season. Animal print is not my thing, but I love the colour of the packaging as well. Oh yeah, and another fun basic, like this is so easy, breezy. It's meant to be like an easel for a makeup artist to use. I wouldn't really do that, but these are magnetic pans. You can pop them out, just bring 2 shades with you if you want, you know, if you're traveling, or if you want in your makeup bag to have a couple of basics. You can pick 2 or 3 shades out of this, 2 or 3 shades out of the next palette I'm going to talk about, and have some of your basic shades all included, and bring them around so easily. So I find that very helpful. Next up, another Natasha Denona palette. So this is the Glam palette. I cannot get my hands on the I Need Nude palette yet. Well, actually, I think the day that I'll make this video live, it will be available in some European shops. But in the until then, I've been really wanting it. We'll see. So this is the Glam palette. Mine is out and about, so I've got about half the shades from the original Glam in here, and then half the shades from the retro in here, to make my own colour story that I like. But in its original format, which I'll put a picture up, this is definitely a basic, easy to use, beautiful palette. Really, really nice. These are magnetic pans, which is how I was able to swap in my retro shades. These shades nearly fit in these pans, but they don't. These obviously wouldn't fit in this because they're too wide. But take a few shades from each out and put them in a magnetic palette, and you're laughing. You've got all your bases covered. I'd say the Glam palette would be my #1 recommendation of basic palette. Like if you like cool neutrals, it's so beautiful, and I'm very excited about the I Need to Nude. We shall see. So next we've got two from Nabla, and you might be very much expecting the side by side, but I've also got the Read My Mind palette. So first off, with the side by side neutral palette, lovely. Now I think this is, it's not basic because you've got some interesting formulas in here, like a bit more squishy, like the Essence Caviar Glow, that you've got very different finishes with some of the shimmers. So I find that interesting and fun, and a bit less basic, and you know, still having fun with my makeup but still wearing neutrals. But still, I think they're easy to use, and you have got some more standard shimmers in here as well. Now, all very impressive, but more standard in terms of how you would use them. But I think the really good thing that makes this a basic palette is that they just have these cohesive rows. So you've got your cool, very cool grey toned row down here, this quite warm toned row, this more peachy subtle row, and this gold middle of the road neutral row. That is just so easy to follow, and you know, you don't have to think too hard about what shades would work together. Obviously you can hop all over, you can do whatever you want, but if you're looking for just something easy breezy, I think that kind of layout is very helpful. And just, you know, if you are learning the basics, like when I was first getting into makeup, it was quite confusing and intimidating what should go together, etc. Obviously do whatever you want, anything you think looks nice or looks fun or looks interesting is great makeup, that's awesome. But if I was trying to achieve a certain look, I didn't necessarily know how to get there, and sometimes it's helpful if it tells you how to get there. Sorry, I ran out of memory. So counterpose that with the Natasha Denona. There's no need for these shades to have these ridiculous names. However, I think it would have been great if they had real names, and then you were told, oh, the rows or make a cohesive look, or the columns make a cohesive look, or the quads or whatever. I think that would be a much better way to do it than, you know, telling people who don't have a crease to use shadows in their crease. So next is the Nabla Read My Mind palette. So here we get into a little bit of colour. This is what I'm talking about. So for me, these are very neutral. Like these are more neutral to me than this row down here. But you've got a honey row, a sage row, a rosé row, and a scarlet row. Cohesive, go together, that's a look. But then you've also got these quads. So that's 8 looks that the palette is telling you work. And I think that that's very clever and helpful, and these are beautiful shadows. And yeah, so less basic color story, more basic presentation and formatting to make it easy to use this palette. And like, isn't that just the most beautiful eyeshadow palette cover you've ever seen? And then finally, the like, yeah, basic palette. This is the Beauty Bay Neutral 42 shade 42 pan palette. So we have a bunch of neutrals and some rosy tones. I was so excited when I saw this palette. I was like, oh my god, perfection. I bought the giant one because some of the pinks weren't in the medium one, and I think it's gorgeous. So this is basic. It has everything you could ever need or want of rosy neutrals, and I think it's gorgeous, so had to be included. If this is too big for you, they do have a 16 pan version and a 9 pan version, which unfortunately is all matte, so that was immediately out for me, but I'm happy to be basic. So that is my 10 basic palette suggestions. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.